Hello, everyone. I got a bit of a feud going on here. And, the old people of older generations would say, don't air your dirty laundry. Right? You'll cause a stink and make you look bad. And you might live to regret doing it. But you know what? I will not regret standing up for myself. Not from this kind of abuse and this kind of treatment. You know, because to a degree, toxic masculinity does exist. It does. It's a behavior, just like toxic femininity. And I don't tolerate it. I don't want to tolerate it. And it's a particular attitude of older generations. The whole boomerism and this entitlement. Now, because it's always thrown in my face. Oh, you try working for 20 years of your life. But that just shows the ignorance of the other person because of how hard it is to be an aircraft mechanic. The rest of the world doesn't really understand the price that is paid in order to keep the world moving. Now, whether or not I'm judged as being psychotic or sociopathic in this regard, you know what? Be my guest. I will not regret standing up for myself. I will not regret the messages and the exchanges I've had with my uncle because of his leveraging and his lying. That's the truth. Is whatever he says is a lie. And he wasn't always like this. He wasn't. He used to be a good and honorable man. But he's always had this self-destructive behavior. And frankly, I'm going to call him out on it, and I'll let the rest of the family know because this is how I feel about the situation and how it went down. And my mother was involved. She was there at the time. But she doesn't want to get in the middle of it. So I respect that. So at this point, it's my word versus his. And I've already filed a complaint with the Strathroy Police Department about this. And the particular matter is the fact that he sold my guns without my permission and with direct influence by my logical conclusion of the buyback program launched by the Trudeau government. The summary of the summary value of the 3 firearms plus ammunition, the dye and the brass. So sorry, not the ammunition, but the bullets and the brass and the primers. I didn't have the primers, sorry. Was around $1,500. The reason for the sale of these firearms was to pay for my legal fees against my ex-girlfriend, who filed a criminal harassment charge against me at a time when I was in absolute, turmoil, and I was in withdrawal of cigarettes, and having gone through extremely stressful situation under immense pressure and mistreatment by two aviation companies, particularly the HR company of the one here in Ontario, in Northern Ontario, and then the indifference and the neglect and complacency of safety standards by the other one in Quebec. And since I started standing up for myself more often, is getting me more and more trouble. But the deal is that if I hear about this, I'm going to credit, good or bad, I'm going to credit Peterson for this, but also Machiavelli, in that the rise to personal power, you have to burn people. Otherwise, you'll never be respected. And sometimes you have to do that to your own family. Shh. Not now, Zoe. And again, I don't necessarily like doing this. I don't like putting this out in the open. But I'm unhappy with his character and his treatment. And he has my personal property. These are all details that are in the complaint to the Strathroy Police Department. Now, I have not been anywhere near his property. I've not talked to him in months. I just had a text exchange, asking him to give me my fucking turbo and other items. No death threats have been issued. None whatsoever. No threats of violence. And in fact, my uncle has a history of violence, alcohol abuse, and drug abuse, particularly cocaine. And through logical deduction, in his earlier years, he was part of a trafficking ring in Toronto for the Italian mob. Probably simultaneously, at the same time as one of my other uncles was on the Toronto police force. These are the secrets families keep, and the secrets that we keep from each other. Now, this is one of the particular reasons why my uncle turned tail and ran from Toronto in the early 90s and late 80s to hide out with my grandparents. This is a shame, if you ask me. And the reason why it's a shame is because I've learned so much about being a mechanic, or like at least working on cars. And we used to have a decent relationship, for many years. But his disrespect of me as a man is intolerable. And his choice of money over family is also, deplorable. Because I'm looking at something here, and obviously I come from a position where tradition and family values are most important, because the core unit is at the heart of society. And this was my great grandfather here, Central Aircraft Limited. He worked in the stores. Now, my grandfather, on my mother's side, was a humble man. If we're gonna, give the family mythos a rundown here, he met my grandmother at a CCM plant during the Second World War, and well, obviously they were together, and then my grandfather became an auto mechanic, and they lived in Downsview in Toronto for eons, basically from the 50s all the way through to the late 80s. They moved, packed up and moved upon retirement to Wyerton. So my grandfather, he worked for GM for most of his life, a dealership in Toronto. And my uncle learned lots from him. A lot of my three uncles on my mother's side have had involvement with automotive or racing at some point in their lives. And or you have an affinity and respect for firearms. Again, that's another part of the relationship that I used to have with this particular person. But unfortunately, again, he chose money over family, and paranoia over knowledge. So what I have here is these were passed down to me, and I've posted pictures about this on my Instagram. These are These are from the Dash 7 prototype stage here. So looking at this. And these have been in my toolbox for a very long time. There's something else in here. There it is. This embroidered patch that I used to have on my door. It needs a cleaning, but nonetheless, de Havilland Aircraft. So this is my personal relationship with aviation and being a mechanic. And hence why it's been so insulting to receive this treatment and this this backstabbery from this uncle, because he knows better. He does. He's not stupid. He's just ignorant. Very ignorant. And disrespectful. Very disrespectful. Now, what I can tell you is that he's misinterpreted over the years the meaning of the following phrase. I've done so much because of you, but I've done so much more without you. And I explained it to him. What that meant was that he enabled me to have confidence in my skills by just being there and having the ability, having the space. But he's never really been a good teacher. He never understood that. I give a lot more credit to the Canadian Forces and the cadet program for my shooting skills, communication, and attitudes toward life. Without the Canadian Forces, I wouldn't have learned how to shoot a rifle. And people don't understand that once you learn how to shoot a daisy, like an Olympian, because that's the way I was trained, right? With a jacket, if I wanted to use it, and a single arm sling with a peep sight. Halfway to biathlon, basically. So he never seemed to understand that. He never seemed to understand or respect. A lot of people don't respect the training that is given to people through the cadet program and through the Canadian Forces. What it is to be an independent person and how to deal with conflicts in extreme scenarios or very stressful scenarios. And this is why the gun thing is so heartbreaking. It is. Because in the moment of stress, I was taken advantage of. He'll say differently. He will, because he runs away from conflict, and you know what? Because of his poor decisions in life, and his financial mistakes, right? That he is where he is. And I don't care about the will. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the house. I don't care about the tools or the fucking guns that he has or any of his property. I really don't care. I'm past the point of giving a shit. And I remember a particular moment where I was angry, right? And I just angry at him, and I stood up for myself in front of the family before dinner in Warrington, and I brushed the top of his head, and his response was to turn around and grab me by the throat and put me to the ground in front of my whole family. Now, there's been other abuses, and his general attitude is that the world is against him. And of course, he went through cancer treatment. He's had a couple of of heart attacks, but he won't stop smoking and he won't change, which is, the really unfortunate. A lot of people don't understand what it is to drive across the country because they don't have the opportunity or the motivation to do it. And when you finish it, when you do it for the seventh time, you have a lot more respect for life and other people. And I, because of working in aviation, to humble brag, I've had the world come to me. I've worked with people from across the planet. I try to treat everybody fairly, even if I don't like them. And the things that I've done for my uncle to help him and enable him in his own life, and to have this treatment in return for fucking money, again, is absolutely deplorable and insulting. Life is about what we do for each other. Otherwise, there is no community. And I think my point has been made in this video. And that if there's any communication between the police and himself, I wouldn't trust him. Right? And any chat logs or anything of the like, some shit talking, some venting. Again, no death threats, no threats of violence. He just wants to be a hermit. He wants to be alone, so I'll let him die alone. That's where I sit, and that's where I stand on the matter. It was never about the guns. It was never about the cars, right? It was about a family business. And he never wanted to go through with it. We communicate these things because in my life I had two basic choices if I was to continue family businesses. One was to be an auto mechanic. The other one was to be an insurance agent. So I became an aircraft mechanic instead. So I want my stuff back that he still has, because he dumped all of my possessions here with the car on me without notice and without communication, because he has an inability to deal with confrontation. And so by that, he is a coward. And I don't respect that. Come to your own conclusions as you will. I didn't like doing this. My grandfather would be ashamed, and so would my grandmother. They really would. Thank you.